Harry, could you please briefly introduce yourself? Like, how old are you? Where are you from originally? And how did you decide to come to China to teach English?
Yeah, no problem. So my full name is Harry. I originally decided to come to China, work and live in China specifically. I found the job application on a website called Indeed, and I considered it for a little while, and then thought about the options of travelling overseas to work and teach because I'm great with children. Um, and I thought about a few other countries, but then decided that the first one that I saw, China, I felt good about. I've always been interested in China. Never travelled here. My dad has travelled here an awful lot, so thought I'd give it a go, and it was a great choice.
Great. And what made you interested specifically in China? Like, because there are plenty of places in the world where you can teach a
Yeah,
second
no, of
language.
course. I mean, there were many options. China specifically because it's very different. I wanted something different. It's a long, long way from home. I like the weather here. I like the people here. I like the tradition in China. Everyone is very respectful, especially of women, and that's a big thing to me. And yeah, I just wanted something different. I've travelled an awful lot in the past with family. I've
Mm-hmm.
been to, I could probably name about 20 different countries off the top of my head, but never China, never anywhere in China. So
Mm-hmm.
I was just really excited to give it a go.
Wow, great. Thank you for this answer. And
Yeah.
specifically about the company Work and Live in China, how was your experience?
Yes.
Can you briefly describe how it happened and what were the milestones you went through and how it
Yeah.
was?
Yeah. So Work and Live in China was the first business I saw that had a job application like this on any website in the UK, in England. So straight away that
Mm-hmm.
popped up in my mind as it must be a good business. Not many people offer this sort of opportunity. And within applying for the job straight away, I had someone add me and message me on Skype. I think within 24 hours, and straight away from there, it started. And I've had non-stop support since then. So I was speaking to someone on Skype called John from Work and Live in China, and he
Mm-hmm.
walked me through the whole process of setting up a visa and flights and dates and the contract. And he was, I mean, I don't think there was ever a time, apart from obviously the time difference when he will have been asleep, I don't think there was ever a time where I messaged him and he took longer than an hour to reply. The support was there 24/7, and that process was really easy. Setting up a visa and booking the flights, that was all great. And then since coming to China, I then was in contact with another person in Beijing called Tommy. So when I arrived in Beijing, I again had non-stop support of Tommy. He walked me through how to get settled in China, so a SIM card for my phone, a bank account. He got the hotel sorted in Beijing where I stayed for 3 nights, and he was great also. I think he was Russian, but there was no language barrier whatsoever, which is one thing I was possibly worried about, because I didn't know any Chinese before coming here, or well, very basic Chinese. But that hasn't been a problem one bit. So Tommy was really helpful, and then since moving from Beijing, I moved to Suzhou where I am now, and I was then in contact with Michael, another worker at Work and Live in China, and he has also been great. And Michael, I'm still in contact with to today, and he's a great guy, easy to talk to, makes everything very easy, very understanding. So yeah.
So are there things in China right now that you need help with and you still go with the help of Michael?
Yeah, so I mean, small parts of since there was with in terms of payments, I came with enough money to maybe last me for a month. But in China, this is one thing that's different. Different to the UK. You get paid a month later than the month you've worked. So I
Mhm.
wasn't prepared for that. So I was a bit worried. But as soon as I messaged Michael and explained my situation, he set up a weekly payment plan, and he sends so much money into my bank account every Monday to get me through the week, and that will help me up until my first salary payday in 10 days. Michael, there's still even just little things about like if I needed any time off work, or if I wasn't feeling well, or I was worried about certain lessons in the kindergarten. Michael is always there 24/7. He always replies to my messages straight away, with all the help, if not more, than he can give.
Okay, great. And can you tell about your first week in China? What were your impressions and experience?
Yeah, so of course, I mean it's a big change, but I'm open to change. So, I didn't see any of the different sort of traditions here as strange. I saw it as interesting. So my first week, obviously the first 2 days of that first week, or 3 days, were made up in Beijing. And Beijing, is a big city. It was crazy. There was so much going on, but it was so interesting. And I used those few days to try and learn as much as I could about living in China. I was going to coffee shops and meeting people and trying to speak as much as I could and trying to learn as much Chinese as I could. My first impressions were, it's a big thing for me because I'm only young, so I was always worried that I was maybe going to feel homesick. But everyone at work and live in China are there for you constantly, to the point where not once have I considered, not wanting to be here or anything. It's a great opportunity, and I love China. I love the people here. Everyone's very, very respectful. I feel safe. And I feel ready to stay here. I can even see myself extending my contract when I end my 1 year.
Okay, great. And how about Chinese language? How do you find it? Is it difficult to learn?
Yes, I mean, yeah, of course it's difficult, but with the right help and if you're ready to try, and especially in a place like a kindergarten where I am now, because everyone's constantly speaking Chinese, it's easy to pick up. I think it's harder, if you were to expect to try and pick up a book or go on Google Translate on your phone and learn that way. It's difficult because the Chinese language is a lot about pronunciation. Not just the words like it would be in Spanish or German. It's about the tone of voice that you're speaking. So since coming here, I mean, I've picked up a fair bit, the basics that I need. But I find that and not once have I struggled with the language barrier. I mean, everyone in the city, even just when I go into a shop or a restaurant, everyone's understanding and doesn't expect you to speak Chinese straight away. And as soon as you learn the basic, I don't speak Chinese, it's all fine from them. And China also, I mean, everywhere I look, if there's Chinese writing, there's also English writing underneath. So like, I've never struggled, not one bit. So it's sort of given me the chance to take my time and learn Chinese at a rate that I want to, which I have been doing, and it's been good. So I find it easy at the moment. It's a hard language, but if you give it time, I'm sure I'll be fluent after. Well, fluent is maybe a push, but I'm not struggling, not one bit.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell a little bit about your apartment, where you live now?
Yes, so I actually live very close to the kindergarten in a place called Sanbao in Suzhou. And my apartment I moved to my apartment, I think I stayed in the kindergarten for maybe a week when I moved here, because the kindergarten used to be someone's house. It's a big mansion. And I stayed here for maybe a week, and that was really nice. But I was rushing to get into an apartment, so I did. And since I moved into the apartment, I decided that I wasn't really happy with the apartment itself, and I realised maybe I had rushed it a bit too quick and not thought about it properly. So straight away, I spoke to Michael, and I'm moving into a new apartment in the next couple of days. So again, it wasn't a problem. It was just a thought, and as soon as I got that thought across, I've been to view multiple apartments again. They work and live in China and just want the best for me. and want me to be settled. So it's been, everyone's been very understanding. Yeah, and I really like the look of my new apartment. It's really nice. So in terms of living conditions and, you know, finding an apartment, it's been no stress at all. It's been great.
And how about the cultural difference? Like, what was the most, I don't know, like amazing or funny thing or maybe awkward thing that you've encountered during your stay in China?
Well, I mean, I guess it's not a cultural difference, but, you know, people like to, Chinese people like to stare a lot because, you know, I mean, in England, there's a lot of Chinese people. So, I don't bat an eyelid when I see Chinese people. It's normal back home. But here, there's less English people in China. So a lot of people like to stare, which can be, you know, a bit strange when you first come here, but when you learn to embrace it and you smile at everyone, you tend to get a smile back. And that's one thing that brings me to a big cultural difference. Everyone in China is very, very respectful, very kind, very loving. In China, I think there's a big thing about, you know, staying with family and looking after older relatives until a certain age. And I love that. I mean, I guess it's very different, but that's the main thing that I like about China is the respect, you know, between people. Another thing is money. The money in China is obviously everything here is a lot cheaper, which was strange. In England, it's so expensive, and no one takes tips. So in England, whenever I ate or even bought something from a shop, I'd always leave some money behind for the person who I bought off or for the waiter or waitress. And in China, so far, I've not experienced that whatsoever. I think I bought a jacket in a Nike store in my first few weeks of being here and tried to leave some change behind for the lady, and she actually ended up chasing me out the shop with the change, which was the equivalent of, I think it was like something like 3 yuan. But to me, that was just, you know, odd, but in a good way. So I could go on for a long time. There's a lot of differences, but not once have I found a difference that has scared me or has made me miss home.
I see. Okay. And the last question I have is, what do you do when you have free time out of work?
Well, I mean, the city that I'm in, Suzhou, is very traditional, very, very traditional Chinese, original. There's loads to see. I mean, I think that goes the same for anywhere in China. There's never going to be stuff for me not to see. So whenever I get the opportunity, even on my lunch breaks in the kindergarten, I just walk. There's a lake nearby, a mountain, a national park, and I just love to walk and see what's going on. There's also certain clubs and bars that tend to have most of the foreign people. So it's interesting to walk around yourself and go and introduce yourself to people, you know, other foreigners, you know, and get talking to them. And 9 times out of 10, you can become good friends with them straight away. Also, I just like to relax, use Wi-Fi. That's one thing that's great in China, the Wi-Fi, the internet. If you buy a SIM card with internet, like in England, say if you buy a SIM card with so much internet, once you've used that, it'll run out. In China, that's not the case. There's a constant flow of traffic in the air. So even if you run out of internet, you've still got the basic internet for your phone that everyone has. So that's one thing I haven't struggled for whatsoever. So I like to watch programs and just chill out. But the main thing is walking and seeing what's going on in the area. I mean, you know, it's so interesting all the time. And I don't think it'll ever become not interesting, you know. There's so much to see. There's so much to do. I definitely want to take a trip as well, a few trips, you know, to various parts of China when I get the chance. Yeah, it's a great place. It's a big place. There's loads to see.
Okay, Harry, thank you for your time today. It was great to hear this experience from you. And
no problem.
we wish we could cooperate in the future and for your long stay in China, since you enjoy a lot.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your time.